One of my values that's really important to me is health, because I believe that I can't be the best version to support people like yourself, anyone who's listening, show up on my social media all the time, if I'm not in a positive mental great space. So I actually share a lot of content about working out. I'm not a trainer. I just share it on stories. I do this. And that's one of my values. But it's not related to personal branding, but it's a huge part of who I am on a day-to-day basis. So
I guess that's how they relate to you, and they
starting to know a little bit more about, well, who else is Kelly other than someone who can help people with their personal brand strategy.
Yeah.
So I think for you, it's looking at, okay, we've got a core piece of motherhood. So there's so much in that. That is a huge piece of what you're doing. This episode is brought to you by the Travel Counsellors, the only franchise travel company in the UAE. If you're inspired to start a business like many of the guests we have on the podcast, love to travel, and the thought of planning dream bucket list holidays lights you up, then this could be the opportunity for you. This flexible business allows you to work from home, bonus, whilst Travel Counsellors provide the training, back office support, licensing, and access to industry-leading booking platform. If you're passionate about travel and have an entrepreneurial spirit and interested in joining a company that put care at the heart of everything that they do, then click the links in the show notes below. So welcome to a different episode today. In 2024, I wanted to open the podcast up to clients and followers on social media where I could help put the spotlight on their journey, things that they've learned, or answer questions and really give tangible feedback to people who are going through that personal brand journey that they're just starting now and don't know where to start. I'm a big believer in trying new things. You never know where it leads. I'm a big believer in trying new things, and you never know where they might lead to. So I'm excited to try this episode. So let's get into it. Abha, welcome to the show, the Kelly Lundberg podcast. This is something completely new that I'm trying this year, where I put a request out on my social media to say, did anyone have a personal branding question? And would you like to come live onto the show? And you replied.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about who you are and why you're here, maybe? Let's start with that.
Yes. So I've been working in the corporate space for the last 17 years. And about 6 years ago, I became a mom. And I'm a mom of two beautiful children. One is 6 and one is 4. And what I realized after becoming a mom was that it's just really hard to have a career and be a mom.
Yeah.
And I really think that we don't need to choose, and we should be able to have them both.
Yeah.
So I decided to start writing about all the challenges I was facing, and I launched something called the Working Mums Club, which is a newsletter on Substack. And I started growing a community of moms who probably feel the same way.
Yeah.
Working Mums Club is really about moms who have career aspirations, but also want to be present moms. I try and support them by offering them resources on how can we better design our work so that it revolves around our life rather than our life revolves around our work. That could mean finding other ways of making an income outside of our 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I talk about productivity hacks. How can we work better and faster? Maybe AI is going to help us change that. So I discuss those things. I interview other moms who have kind of achieved what I'm trying to achieve and maybe other moms are trying to achieve. Yeah. And I'm trying to build a support community around that of like-minded moms.
Yeah.
And I recently quit my 9 to 5.
Congratulations.
To see if I can pursue this full time and really because I do think it's possible. I do think that we don't have to choose.
Yeah. So what's your question then around that?
I think my question is, I'm moving from a very corporate background to, I'm not sure what to call it, maybe an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or a newsletter writer or a community builder.
Let's go with entrepreneur.
Okay.
Let's go with
that. So how do I move from being 100% corporate girl, institutionalized the last 17 years, to entrepreneur, doing something completely different that I've never done before? How do I even find my own personal brand that I'm putting out there? And I don't like to use the word selling because I'd like to believe my community to be more than just a sales pitch. But how do I use all the experience I have and transfer it into this personal brand of mine that's going to build this community that I'm dreaming of?
Yeah. I love it. And I think that there's many people watching and listening that are thinking the same in the space of, oh, I'm in corporate, but how do I move? How does my skill set transfer? And I think one of the things that I always think about is when you're starting out with something new, you're often best placed to serve the person you once were. So you only need to be 1 chapter, 2 chapters even ahead to support someone else who's not even made the leap like you have of actually leaving full-time employment. That might be a year or 2 years off for someone else. You've already done that. So you've got credibility in what you're doing because you're walking the talk, I guess.
So I took the step.
Yes. So you're already ahead of people in that. So there's credibility in that space there because there's things you've learned from that. What did you learn? Okay, I maybe needed to have done this. I maybe needed to do this, or I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. Then I knew I was ready. So then that's a part of the piece of how do you bring the corporate world into it? Because I imagine you're thinking about 2 very completely different skill sets.
And I think in the corporate world, as many might know, and you might know yourself as well, you're always thinking about the company. And what can I do for the company? And how can I work for the company? Yeah. Now, when I reposition myself and I'm thinking about, okay, but this is me.
Yeah.
And it's quite easy to run a blank a little bit, you know, because you're still defining who you are, what do you stand for, you know, how are you going to help others, how are you building what you're building, and how is it going to work? Who are you to make this work, you know? Because when you're in corporate, you have the brand values and you have your mission statement and your visions, and you're kind of just blending in with what's given to you, right? And you're just implementing. But when you're on your own, it's a blank piece of paper, and I think I'm looking at it going, where do I begin?
Yeah.
Who am I?
And kind of taking that in the piece there of where do you kind of take that next? Like, what are baby steps for you to do? And I think the piece on what you are doing is, once you're best placed to serve someone you once were. So you were that working mum. You want to help that person to be where you are now. So the credibility for you comes there. All those hacks that you're talking about, the things that you're saying that you help people with, is because you were a working mum and because you are a mum. So I had said to you earlier that for me to launch Working Mums would be a terrible idea because I'm not a mum. I may be able to do it, but there wouldn't be the credibility because other mums would be like, hang on a minute, she's not going home to 2 kids and she's not got this and she's not got that. So I don't think it needs to be, you need to have this. And I think often in corporate, with employees that have come from a corporate mindset, is that it needs to be all in a cute little nice box and tied up before we take it to the outer world. And the answer to that is it's not. It's a constant evolution. So for you, the first place I would look at is, what's my values? Okay, what's important to me? Because the values drive what you're prepared to talk about, what you're prepared to share. They become then part of the foundation of your content pillars on your social media, your newsletters that you're writing, the content that you actually talk about. So I would say, what are some of the things that you could write out 10 values, much like you would in the corporate space. Yeah. But what are your 10? And then narrow them down to sort of 3 or 5 that you're like, you know what, these are mine for now. They could change in a couple of years, but what's really important? So one of my values that's really important to me is health, because I believe that I can't be the best version to support people like yourself, anyone who's listening, show up on my social media all the time, if I'm not in a positive mental great space. So I actually share a lot of content about working out. I'm not a trainer. I just share it on stories. I do this. And that's one of my values. But it's not related to personal branding, but it's a huge part of who I am on a day-to-day basis. So
I guess that's how they relate to you, and they
starting to know a little bit more about, well, who else is Kelly other than someone who can help people with their personal brand strategy. Yeah. So I think for you, it's looking at, okay, we've got a core piece of motherhood. So there's so much in that. That is a huge piece of what you're doing. So I had a little look at your website before we came in and I felt a little piece that was missing was that bit about you, the pictures of you. Why are you doing this?
When I think about putting stuff out there about me, I often think, why should they care? Why is that? How is this helping anybody else?
Great question. Even if it helps just one person, you've helped them. And that's the thing, that when we stop thinking about, because you're in a space right now of me, why would anyone listen to me? So you're very much in your headspace and what will people think about me and why am I doing this and what will my ex-colleagues think if I'm putting out stuff here or whatever it is. But if you reframe it and think, what if I can help one person, one mum who's at their wit's end going, I can't do this anymore. And they just happen to scroll past a piece of content that you've shared going, are you struggling with this? Are you thinking that it's totally not possible to work and be there for your children? Just one person. And when you go, if I'm just creating that piece of content for one person and it's changed the way that they go to bed and how they sleep and how they wake up in the morning, would you create it?
Yeah, for sure.
The relatability. And I feel that would be a strong next step for you to look at. How could I make my personal brand more
me?
Yes.
It's interesting you say that, because there's a famous quote, I can't remember who it's by, but it came to mind when you're speaking. It's like, somebody is always watching you and learning from you.
So I would get that printed out and put somewhere. Yeah, and put that somewhere for now. If that resonates with you. Yeah, just when you're going, oh, I feel really bad. I'm like, what should I put out content? Think back to your values and that personal piece, because you're doing something that is very much, it is personal. You're sharing with people, okay, how as a working mum am I transitioning from corporate life to entrepreneurship? How am I developing relationships? What's worked for me? Oh, did this and it didn't work at all. And that really honest piece of someone going, wow, okay, do you know what? I could do that. Or she's just gone out and gone to a networking event and she's met 2 people.
Yeah.
And that could be a piece of content. That could be a newsletter.
True.
3 things I learned from a networking event.
Yeah, it's like a bit like, what do they call it? Building in public. Yes. Where you kind of just, I'm doing this and this is what I'm doing, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't, and maybe it'll resonate with you, maybe it won't, but this is what I'm doing.
Exactly that. And that's the authenticity piece of where I think when you're not visible and you're doing a very personal business, it's hard to relate. And I think that personal piece is going to help you a lot more, from driving people to your newsletter and pictures on your website. And even one of the things that I was just talking about pre-chat was, how do you engage more people to join your mailing list? And I think that it's really important that we drive people from social media to your database.
Correct.
Because we never know when Instagram or Facebook can be hacked, we'll lose the password and we can't get into it, whatever it is. So it's really important, that aspect, but it's got to be valuable of why someone would give their email. And what is that value piece? So you've really got to think about, okay, what would be really valuable to a working mum right now that's struggling with the balance piece? And then that will grow it. So one of the things that's worked really well for us as a business, we've grown our mailing list organically through a quiz. And it's 60 seconds and you can find out where your personal brand sits in that. And out of that, then we have an email that goes directly to the client, and then they've got options of being able to book in for a call with our team. So they're on my list and they've got, it's easy for them. Yeah. That has grown 500, 600, 700 emails in the last 8 months. So I would be thinking, what would have been really valuable for you 2 years ago?
Yeah. And if I can build some sort of engagement around that, then it's a good maybe way to bring them into my world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't forget to keep putting that out on social media. So then a lot of people forget then to put the call of action of going, download this, like, a checklist of 10 things, maybe whatever it is, or watch this 5-minute video or this podcast that's going to help you with X. And it's back to the pain point of what you're trying to do.
It's so funny. It's like, as my job before, I'm a digital strategist. So I'm in digital communications, and I used to sit across my clients and tell them what you're telling me now. But it's amazing how when you have to turn inwards, I'm actually really surprised how it's not easy. Yeah. It's easier to look outwards because you're not involved, you're not emotionally connected. You can see the big picture because you're not that person. So it's very easy to, I could advise them. When it came to me,
it's so hard.
It's just like,
You can't see the wood from the trees because
No.
you're so emotionally invested in it.
Correct.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's why I think so often, regardless of who it is, having mentors and coaches and other people out with what you're doing that you can go to and say, like you've done today, you know,
Yes.
come on here asking a question, and that one thing's going to take you, because what got you here is not going to get you to the next space.
Correct.
What are the things I need to do that are going to help me get to the next space? What do I need to learn? What do I need to improve? What, you know, skills need to go in it? And when we're starting out, we need to be able to kind of do everything.
Everything. It's a lot of also getting out of your comfort zone. I've realized it's like, you know, a lot of things you just have to do because, you're doing everything on your own.
What's one thing out of what we've talked about that you're going to go, do you know what? I'm going to go in action straight away.
I think I'm going to look into some engagement activity to grow my list.
Yeah?
I think so, because I think it's growing slowly. And I think I need, and I don't, my list is fully organic as well. I don't want to pay to get emails. I'm not sure. I don't think I need to do that at the moment. And I'd rather have people who want to be on the list rather than just getting through ads. So maybe an engagement activity. Maybe I'll see, you know, how can I put something out there that will make working moms looking for a change think a little bit, and bring them into my world.
So I would use your existing audience to ask them what is their biggest challenge that they're facing, or what's their biggest pain point.
Yeah.
Put that out to your 700 mailing list on a poll, and then take the biggest piece and create something for that.
Around that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
And they've got it.
And now, there's so many tools online. It's so easy to do this kind of stuff. Yeah. So no excuses.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Did it answer something to help you get to the next phase?
It's always really great to have someone to talk to, as you said, who's outside it all and is just listening to you and just from their expertise telling you, well, why don't you try this?
Yeah.
I think I'm all for that. I'm all for mentorship. I'm all for coaching. I'm all for, getting help from people who can help you. So,
well, you have to let us know how it goes.
I will.
Yeah?
I will.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you to travel counsellors for this episode. If you're inspired to start a business like many of the guests that you hear on the podcast, and the thought of planning a dream bucket list holiday lights you up, check out the details in the show notes.